Hi, I'm Jacqueline Richard. I work at Fox Sports in growth marketing, and I service the Fox Sports network with CRM and lifecycle marketing, all about trying to drive incremental viewership and retention for on-platform users. And today I'm going to let all three of you introduce yourselves because you're less on the brand side and more on the brand enablement side within media. So I don't want to butcher your respective roles. So take it away, Cathy.
Hi again. I'm back. So I run the sales team on the West Coast at PadSquad. We are a media tech company. We work with a lot of agencies and brands in terms of running their media on our partner hubs, but also the focus for us is how do we do that in a creative way. So, we will work with brands in terms of their assets and create really engaging ad formats. Interactive video is a big suit for us. But yeah, I'm excited to be on this panel.
Awesome. Hey everyone, Paul Chenier, EVP Global Sales for Playwire. Long-time host, first-time panelist, so I'm looking forward to this. Playwire, what do? We make it easy and efficient for brands to reach kids and Gen Z audiences through high-impact custom solutions in and around gaming and entertainment. To you, Brandon.
Brandon Barcus. I'm from Ohio originally, and I've heard people shit on influencers in Ohio, so I'm here to defend both. And I work at a company called Spotter. We help support the world's top YouTube creators through everything from creative financing to AI tools, deep data and insights, and community connection.
Great, thanks. So I have the really hard job of trying to market things like the World Series and the Super Bowl, things that are really hard to sell. But with that, we have to be super laser focused with where we spend our money and making sure that we're reaching audiences we wouldn't normally reach just through our traditional channels like broadcast. So I want to double click on some of these emerging trends that we're seeing users on digital channels. So first of all, when I think about growth strategies to reach younger audiences, I immediately think of TikTok and gaming. eMarketer recently published an insight that half of the US population considers themselves digital gamers. I wouldn't fall into that category, so that stat actually shocked me, but it's much more than you think. And I think that brands can look from the sidelines and not be sure exactly how to merge wade into this space in an authentic way. Paul, I was wondering if you could share some insights on just gaming culture and user behaviors that brands should be considering.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in gaming for about 22 years now. But everything I've learned over the last 6, because I have a focus group of 1 at home, who's a little boy. And I can tell you, first of all, gaming writ large is the single biggest media platform that nobody's figured out. And I don't want to say nobody's figured it out because I know there's marketers here who've done incredible things in the gaming world. But it is a massive fragmented ecosystem with incredible engagement, incredible reach. Somebody's going to figure it out. Number one. Number two is when you think of this next generation of consumers, it is a war for attention. My son sits there, he's got the iPad, the TV, he's watching YouTube, he's playing Fortnite, he's doing it all at once. So as a marketer, to understand this next generation, you need to understand their bifurcated attention spans, their short attention spans, and you need to understand how to break in, right? So number one, getting into gaming is not easy, right? You have to be very selective about how you do it. Number two, you have to understand it's a war for attention. And number three is you can't show up empty-handed. One of my good friends in the industry always says that. The most important thing is when you go into a game environment, understand that you're asking for something from them. You're asking for them to stop what they're doing, stop what they love doing, to pay attention to your brand. Right? The typical value exchange in advertising was always, if you watch my 30-second commercial, we're going to pay for this show to be produced, right? So often. In gaming, that's not the case. These are big businesses. They don't necessarily need the advertising to survive, right? It's a nice to have. So you need to go into that environment thinking about the audience, thinking about the game, and understand that you have to engender trust and loyalty from these users, and the way you do that is surprise and delight. The way that you do that is show up to parties and cake, and make sure that you're giving them something in exchange for their time and attention, right? Attention, it's a war for it. What are you doing to break through? Make sure your ads are engaging for one. Make sure you're giving them something. That value exchange happens at the one-to-one level.
Can you think of any recent brands who have done this really well off the top of your head? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think Transformers 1, which was an amazing movie, by the way.
Very good movie. I highly recommend. It's very good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We didn't do this, and I'd love to, we've done a lot of cool things, but I'll talk about a competitor who did something great, which was they recreated the big race scene from Transformers in Roblox, and they did a full kind of one-to-one match of what that was. So they effectively enabled the user within Roblox to go and be a part of the movie, which I think was great. Number two is they offered UGC, which is basically like little things you can wear as a reward for those who engage with it. So I think it was just an amazing way to go into Roblox, which is obviously a massive platform, to create value for the users, but also to help them feel a connection to a brand that you want them to be a part of in the real world. So I think that was a very good example.
Nice, nice. Switching gears, we've heard a lot about influencers today. As brand marketers, they're critical for reaching younger audiences, and as Gerald talked about earlier today, there's definitely a right way and a cringy way that we've all seen. I was wondering if, Brandon, you could talk about how you've seen some of the consumption and viewing habits of users watching UGC content evolve in the last 5 years. I know that when I think of influencers, I'm thinking of more the mommy bloggers, the 2012 emergence of influencers. I love to play a game where I hike the Runyon Canyon and try and find influencers in the wild. But my 9-year-old daughter thinks about content creation. I don't even think she'd know what the word influencer is. She's all about content creators and knows this whole new generation of YouTubers out there that I've never heard of. I'm wondering if you could talk about how the evolution has been in the last 5 years or so, and where you think it's headed.
Yeah, I mean, I was shaking my head at Gerald in agreeance, actually, because we don't really even say influencer at Spotter. We do talk about creators a lot, and I think people are going to have different varying definitions of those, so I won't even get into that. But when I think about creators or the ones we're focused on, it's not somebody who went viral a time or two and then is now reaching out to brands trying to capitalize on that moment. Not that there's anything wrong with that, no shade whatsoever, but the creators that we're talking about are people that have been dedicated to creating content for an audience for years. In some cases they have episodic reoccurring series, character development, they have a cadence at which they're posting, which people actually tune into. I mean, we're in some ways going back to cable, which is really wild. If anyone in here has kids who watch Dude Perfect or Mr. Beast, you might know that every other Saturday they're sitting down, I see some heads nodding, when this comes on, and these things are doing tens, if not hundreds of millions of views in some cases. So I think, one of my favorite parts about this industry, and I think the coolest thing is there's so many brilliant, creative people out there whose ideas never would have seen the light of day without the emergence of platforms like TikTok or YouTube. And the barriers to entry now are almost nothing, right? If you have a phone, a camera, and an idea, you can get it out to the world, and these algorithms can help you find the right audiences overnight. Now, I think in terms of the evolution of that, it's getting better. It's getting more advanced. I think these creators are getting their hands on more advanced equipment. They're sharpening their chops. A lot of them have aspirations to become directors, to move into Hollywood. We're starting to see actual real partnerships between creators and the streaming services in Hollywood. So Mr. Beast, largest creator in the world, is getting ready to drop a show that's exclusively on Amazon Prime Video, coming up with a little teaser on YouTube before. And that's supposed to be the biggest game show ever, 2,000 contestants, $5 million grand prize. And so we're looking at this and we're creators are becoming Hollywood faster than Hollywood is becoming creators. You also have the e-com side, which is coming in. So I think it's been really cool. I think the content's going to continue to get better and better, but these creators really have their finger on the pulse, right? It's culturally relevant. They're more relatable than celebrities and athletes in a lot of times, many of which I work with. So again, no shade there, but for next-gen audiences, these are the new celebrities of our time.
Any that we should be paying attention to?
Depends what you're interested in. I think that's also the really cool part too. Gone are the days where you have to try to find like this wide idea that's broadcast to a bunch of different people. Like it could be, not to use another gardening analogy, but it could be like tomato gardening, and you could go find hundreds of millions of people around the world that love tomato gardening. And if you're like a passionate, authentic creator, that's going to come across. You're going to find a following, and you're going to be able to monetize that.
Interesting. I have so many side questions around that. Like, how do brands know who they should be partnering with, or do you kind of see bridges into different influencer or content creation audiences that are less obvious?
Yeah, great question. I think brands are very curious. I think they want to be in the space. Some are much further along than others. I think a lot of people are still trying to figure out what that looks like and what makes sense for their business. So I know one thing that we focus on a lot at Spotter is like everything being rooted in deep data and insights, right? So we're sitting on this mound of data and insights, not just about the creator, but about their audience too, because at the end of the day, that's what we're after, right? It's the audiences. It's not, you're not actually buying the creator, you're buying people to go buy your car, or people to go see your movie, to buy that new phone that's coming out. So I think we talk a lot about creators, but the audiences who watch these creators are actually where the attention is. That's where the battle for attention is. And so how do you make sure that you're pairing the right brand with the right creator? Sometimes creators come and tell us, hey, I want to work with this brand, whatever, and vice versa. But then we start looking at the data. There's a lot of non-obvious creators that can drive serious results for a brand. And there's reciprocal, mutually beneficial things that can happen too, because that brand can actually bring on a new audience for the creator, new subscribers as well. That YouTuber can bring over a new audience and influence for the brand.
Interesting. Cathy, I was wondering, you have so much expertise in creating really impactful digital experiences for brands and finding the right emerging channels. I was wondering if you could chat about less obvious shifts you're seeing in media consumption that are happening, and how do you guide brands to get in front of the kids but maintain their authenticity?
Yeah, so I've been in the business for a while. I was on the agency side, and went to the publisher side. But not to age me, but I used to be on the print team. So I love traditional, like what they call traditional media, and consumer habits are very different. Now it's like digital should be basically the baseline, right? Traditional, like nobody is really watching linear. Everyone's on their device, and they're on multiple.
Some people are watching linear.
Some. And look for the live sports, yes.
Yeah, sure.
But they're always on every screen, right? So, each of you talked about attention. So when we're also heavy in like the attention metrics. We work with Adelaide's and the World Lumens, and what we like to focus on is kind of what some people mentioned earlier, like going back to the basics of the only tactile thing that consumer sees is your creative, right? They see your message. Yes, obviously all the targeting and audience, all that great stuff gets built into the plan, which obviously we all three of us do, but as long as your message and your creative is personalized and engaging and interactive, like this is what the younger generations are asking for, and they kind of expect that, right? They don't want just a 15-second pre-roll. Like how can I engage more with it? How can I go deeper with the brand? So, what our company tries to help, with marketers is like, okay, well, not recreate the wheel. We'll work with your assets and build these, experiences for you. You're not having to create new assets. We're not, making you spend tons of money, creating, filming and shooting on all this other stuff. So back to the basics of like, okay, this is what I have. These are all the amazing assets I have. These are all the messaging. I'm going to work with companies to make it interactive, but also it's like, what are the user behaviors? Like, where's the attention? Like, our company just intuitively is high attention. Like, we want to stop the scroll, right? So we rank at almost double what Adelaide's benchmarks are for our category. So obviously when they came to market and they told us, we're like, hey, we knew it, but we didn't have like a third party kind of check that box. But kind of also tapping into other growth areas. So we've been working with a lot of companies in terms of how to speak to multicultural audiences, right? Doing in-language creative, how do we personalize it? Where are moments that we can be in that we can help our brands, like celebrate Diwali, celebrate Filipino American History Month, like helping them kind of build these messaging because, the future is very multicultural, right? So it's like learning how to message and personalize, what you're trying to tell your audiences, and also, for partners like us, helping you get the insights of like who's actually engaging, right? Like, oh, this message is really hitting the heartstrings, for these consumers. Like, we should probably lean into this. So,
I just wanted to pick up quickly on something you said, which is, I think it's travesty. Travesty is a strong word, but if you think about the second biggest ad tech company in the world, the Trade Desk, right? Everybody has spent a lot of time and money building the Trade Desk so they can get the exact consumer right when they want them, right as they're deep in the funnel, right as they're about to make a decision. And then they deliver a below-the-fold 160 by 600, or a 300 by 250, right? And it just seems like such a waste of resources and technology. And then I think about the biggest ad tech in the world that nobody even knew existed until last week, which is AppLovin, who all of their technology is built around engagement. They're doing all the same things and reaching the right user at the right moment at the right time, but they're doing it with highly engaging creative, right? Obviously, in the mobile gaming world, a little bit easier. So again, speaking to the marketers out there, if you're going to do all that work to understand your user, to build technology, to build, make sure you read them with the right kind of creative, something that's going to capture their attention.
Can you expound on that exact topic you were? I'm not familiar with AppLovin, so I imagine others aren't as well.
Okay, so
what happened last week?
So everyone talks about the Trade Desk. They're an incredible company. They're worth many, many billions of dollars. Arguably the biggest open market ad tech company on the planet. And I was caught off guard. I work in mobile gaming. AppLovin last week announced earnings that basically made this company worth twice as much as the Trade Desk. And what AppLovin does is they effectively trade audiences around the mobile gaming ecosystem. So if you're Angry Birds and you want to acquire new audiences to play your games, you go to AppLovin, and they acquire those audiences from Talking Tom and vice versa. So they've created a marketplace much like the Trade Desk has done with open web and CTV, but they've done it within mobile gaming environments. And again, coming back to gaming being the single biggest media platform that nobody really thinks about as a media platform, what AppLovin has done is they've unified mobile gaming. Right? They've turned this into a massive business. They've made it simple and scalable for brands to be involved in that ecosystem, and they've done a good job with it.
Thank you. I've heard this next question asked a number of times. So, Paul, I was wondering if you could share your expertise or your thoughts on how brands balance being able to take risks and reserving some of their investment budget for test and learn or trying out new things, new channels, versus the tried and true kind of platforms that guarantee measurable ROI.
Well, the platforms have made it incredibly easy for brands to spend money. They've done a great job with that, right? They've proven to brands time and again that if you give them $1, they're going to get you $1.50 back. And so it's hard to say no to that, right? The scale is there. It's easy for one person, the efficiency to deploy $8, $10, $15, $20 million. I think that the thing I say to brands is don't be afraid to take some risk, right? Don't be afraid to call up that publisher that you're kind of curious about or that technology provider that you're kind of curious about and say, hey, listen, I'm going to get into this with you. Like, let's do a test and learn, let's have fun, let's see where this goes, because you never know when you're going to find the next big thing, right? You never know when you're going to find that performance that beats out the big platforms. And the truth, even bigger than this is all love to big platforms for us here, but they're drowning out the premium independent publishers that really make the internet work, right? All the technology, all of the information that's being used for ChatGPT and whatnot is built in the kind of the mid and long tail internet, and they're being starved right now. So I strongly encourage brand marketers out there, agency marketers out there, don't be afraid to take a risk. Don't be afraid to try something new. Nobody gets fired for buying Meta. We know that. But also nobody gets fired for taking a $20,000 or $30,000 flyer on a company that might be the next big thing, whatever that is.
Some of the last panel just said, talking about looking at risk as opportunity too versus like a scary risk. And I love that because I think as long as you're learning, there's really no failing. I mean, hopefully it didn't cost your company like hundreds of millions of dollars, but as long as you're learning and growing and moving, in a positive direction, I think like risk is necessary actually.
What kind of technology trends do you see starting to become more and more important in engaging younger audiences? Feel free to jump in.
I mean, obviously everyone mentioned AI, but tapping into like functionalities of what's available. That's what my company likes to do. Is like how can we push the needle in terms of what you can actually do on your phone, right, in an ad environment, on CTV or desktop. So I will be very interested to see how audio continues to play a part in terms of how people interact, with their devices, how that's going to be integrated more into everything. Obviously AI, how that's going to kind of play out, but I feel in the next couple of years it's going to be interesting because I feel like there's going to hopefully be like a really cool tech shakeup of like another new iPhone, crossing fingers. We'll see, I don't know, maybe something cool at CES that we'll see. But I think the behavior is changing, and I think the technology hasn't really met up. I think the next one, which is kind of cool, is the Meta glasses. I know Snap tried to do it, and I know Meta's doing it. I tried it on, it's actually pretty cool. And kind of going into that space, like now how are consumers going to react to that, interact, engage in that environment, and then what does that look like in terms of how that might be for a brand, right, to kind of integrate there.
Are those all the Ray-Ban commercials with Anderson .Paak?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Always look cool, but then I'm like, how would I use that? I get how they use it, but how would I use it?
You ask what the weather is, maybe play music, but it's actually pretty cool. It's very easy to use.
They are pretty cool. My neighbor's a product designer, and he tells me every day how cool they are, so very cool. I would say, I think we're at this really interesting moment, like in terms of like what's the next big technology, and that most of the technologies that we've come to work with have kind of plateaued a little bit. Programmatic's only getting bigger. Obviously, AI is all anybody wants to talk about it because it's absolutely breathtaking what you can do with it. I love one of the first panels here today where someone showed Starburst and all the different ways they hyper-personalize creative. To me, it's not AI. Obviously, it's what are you going to do with it? Are you going to make it a force multiplier for you and your sales team, or you and your marketing team? Are you going to hyper-personalize creative? To me, that's kind of the thing that I'm looking at. When you understand this next generation, not only is their attention divided, but they're hyper, what's the word I'm looking for? They're hyper-aware of who they are, hyper-proud of who they are, and they want to be spoken to in a one-to-one manner. Right? Again, it's not the lowest common denominator of the sitcom on Thursday at 8:30, or 9:30, I forget what it was, Friends and Seinfeld. They really want experiences and marketing that's tailored to who they are as a human being. And to me, that's one of the big things I'm going to be looking at. Like the Starbucks thing is, who's going to leverage AI and who's going to take risks to build creative, multivariate creative, that really engages the audiences and gets what they're looking for from them.
Sorry, I'm going to do the AI thing. But I think like one of the interesting things that we're seeing, at least with our AI suite, is AI used for creative purposes on the front end. So like idea generation, for example. So right now we're seeing, creators type in, I'm a travel creator, give me ideas about, bucket list items to engage my audience traveling through Peru or something. And what we're doing is we're ingesting their entire YouTube library first. So the ideas that are coming back, 50 ideas in a split second, that are totally customized to not only the inputs they put in, but all the data and performance across their YouTube channel to then be able to compare that against others, but also to then enter the human element of like, what do you now do with those ideas? What kind of creativity did that spark in you? And then to take that step further down the road, like how cool is it now to have a brand in on that once you identify a creator or a set of creators and brands that make sense for each other, to sit down with these tools that actually can empower you to come up with more ideas faster, but ultimately, in the end, actually be more creative, which I think a lot of people in this room appreciate. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, this is how this entire panel is on AI. You put the questions in the answer. The hard part was memorizing them. No, I mean, like one thing I just say is like, don't get lazy with AI. Don't let it do your job. I've seen that actually a lot recently, where I'm like, people are sending me stuff like, here's a bunch of ideas. And I'm like, this is clearly AI, and it's shit, it's way too much. Like it really, you can really hear someone's voice, and you can see originality in concepting. So just to all the marketers, sellers, and everyone here, like, don't let AI do your job. Like, use it to make your job better, easier, spend more time with your family, but yeah, don't rely on it too much.
Wrapping up, so Brandon, with younger generations, it's all about the immediate attention grab. What strategies do you see content creators using really effectively that brands should be paying attention to when it comes to reaching Gen Z and Gen A audiences?
I mean, there's definitely like the quick hook. You have like 3 seconds now, but I think it even starts before the content viewing experience. So, like for us on YouTube, thumbnail generation is a huge thing. There's entire companies and businesses and industry all around strategic thumbnail generation to get somebody to be targeted and click on that video. So the war for attention is happening even before that. But I think also what's interesting too is not just getting people to engage, but to keep them engaged. So I'll show my age now if anyone's seen Dangerous Minds. It's harder to keep an A than to earn an A. And I think that's like what we see a lot. So, you know, all of our creators, we see like an average of 20 plus average minute length of their video content. And which is interesting because that's kind of counterintuitive to what you would think is really happening in the space. But YouTube, now Spotify, TikTok are all sending pretty clear signals to creators that long form is the future. Not to say there's not a space for short form, but I think the really savvy creators right now figured out that a lot of the attention and money is engagement, is long form, and use short form to promote that and drive back to your long form piece.
How are we doing on time?
Thank you. Oh, I think you guys have about 1 minute left.
Okay. Any questions for our panelists? All right.
We're tired.
Yeah, it's late.
It's also break time,
Need some
so
sugar.
we'll get some caffeine for everyone. Give a big